All right. Welcome back to another Elevated Marketing podcast, where we simplify complicated digital marketing topics so that you can have a real growth in your business. This show is brought to you by Elevated Marketing Solutions, and so it's elevatedmarketing.solutions. And my name is Jennifer Denny, and with me I have the lovely
Brenna Jackson.
So today we're going to talk about, I know one of Brenna's favorite types of marketing, email marketing, but we're going to specifically talk about a re-engagement campaign. So why don't we start off and why don't you tell us what is a re-engagement campaign?
Uh, to put it in simple terms, maybe you have a list of people that you haven't spoken to in a while. They haven't really received emails from you ever or in a while. And you simply just want to start warming that list back up again so you can send more. So the words are hard. So then you can send more consistent emails rather than just throwing them into it,
Yeah.
getting unsubscribes or what have
So
you.
correct me if I'm wrong, a re-engagement campaign could also be people maybe that are consistently getting emails from you, but they're just not engaged, and you could segment those off as that well, right?
Yes, yeah, you could kind of split this in two different ways. You're either warming up a list or you're trying to get more people who you're already sending to engage with you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So the key is they're not engaging with you. You're going to try to do that with email marketing.
Yep.
Okay, so what would you say is some of the beginning steps that you need to consider when you're thinking about a re-engagement campaign?
Yeah, whether it's a cold list or a list that you've had, you definitely would like to look into cleaning that list up. You might have some people on there that are no longer valid email addresses. Maybe they're just inactive. And so you can use different tools to help clean up that list. An example might be Never Bounce. Um, Essentially, you just want to make sure you are sending to people who are capable of opening your emails.
Yeah, yeah. I think also, thinking about cleaning the list, like you want to comply with
Hmm.
spam regulations, and you've set up your DMARC and all these complicated like things, but that certainly can help as well, to get that re-engagement.
For sure. Yeah, and something too, like if you've got maybe a form that's actively helping you build your list, you'll want to be sure that there is like a double opt in. It could even just be as simple as a checkbox next to the form that is, they are opting in to receive your newsletters, your emails, whatever marketing communication it may be.
Yeah. So tell us about like segmenting the list when it comes to re-engagement.
Yeah. So when you're segmenting a list, this will be, again, coming from a list of people who you've had and you've been sending to. There are different segments that you could pull. You can pull it based on whether they've opened your email and they've clicked through. Maybe they haven't opened your email, and those are really the people you want to re engage with. Or maybe how they've joined. So maybe they opted in to subscribe, or maybe they were a customer or a past purchaser, and now they're on your list to receive emails.
Is there a situation when maybe you shouldn't segment your list that much?
Yes, yeah, this is important. I mean, the size of your list matters for sure. If you've got, let's say, for an example, 100 people on your email list, it's probably not necessarily worth the squeeze yet to then segment. You need to focus on building that list and getting more people in front of your emails.
Yeah, that's a good example of focusing on the wrong thing at the wrong time. Gotta have a decent sized list first, versus maybe you have a really large list and
Mhm.
you're working on a re-engagement, but it's okay to take people off your list. If they're not engaging with it, drop them from the list, have
Mhm.
them sign back up.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're obviously not interested, or maybe they're just not interested right now and they still want to see it. But
Mm.
I think not treating an audience that is not engaged at the moment a little bit different than those are could be a mistake when you have a pretty large list.
For sure. And I think too, especially when it comes to segmenting, you know, when you're pulling those segments, if you've got that list that's large enough to do so, it is really pulling those who have engaged with you. So I'm talking about clicks, not necessarily just opens, because you can have people on your list who open your emails just to clear out their inbox. They're not necessarily engaging.
Yes, that is a really good point.
Mhm.
Um, I think another thing when I think about that too, you saying that is uh, maybe you're sending too often, and
Yeah.
that's why you don't have the engagement. And so I think that's a good idea too.
Yeah, frequency of sending emails definitely matters. And again, especially, it doesn't even necessarily matter like how big your list size is. At that point, I mean, regardless, people are getting your emails. That frequency needs to not be overbearing.
Yeah. What do you think about like with these re-engagement campaigns when it comes to like the messaging of these campaigns?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on which side of re-engagement you're on. So if this is a cold list, people you've not really gotten in front of before, that should definitely be more of an introduction. What you do, what you provide, how you're helping them. Now, if you are sending an email to those who have been getting your emails and you're trying to get them to re-engage, um, just make sure it's not too salesy. It needs to be similar to maybe a welcome email. Just kind of reintroduce yourself. Hey, we've lost touch. Let's reconnect. Something like that.
Yeah, I like the, still interested. You're basically being more forward about it
Yeah.
and trying to see, are they actually interested? I think there's also a different list where maybe this is people that you are consistently communicating with. They're just not used to getting maybe a newsletter from you.
Mhm.
And so the messaging inside that campaign, you need to introduce like what you're going to be sending, so that they're excited about it and that they do want to get it.
Yes, I no, that's a good point. And I think about too, and maybe that's a list that you've had for a while, but also maybe some past purchasers. They might be purchasing your product, but not necessarily subscribing. But we want them on that list. They're a customer. We want to keep them as a customer. And so I think they kind of fall into that category as well. That's a good point.
Yeah. So when you're doing these engagement campaigns, I think it's important to, depending on the size of your list, can you talk through like maybe how gradual or fast you should be emailing someone, depending on how large your list is?
Yeah. So, I mean, gradual is the perfect way to describe this. Not necessarily a slow burn, but you don't want to hit them all at once. So let's say, for example, you've got 6,000 people on your email list. Maybe
Hmm.
instead of sending to all 6,000 at once, you kind of divide that up, and maybe you're sending to 1,000 people per week. Um, and then over time, you can kind of build those segments and you can kind of gain a better understanding of those 6,000, who's the most engaged, who's not engaged. And then you can kind of go from there in terms of sending maybe your more regular sends.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing you have to pay attention to is the platforms, and there are certain metrics that you want to stay underneath, like unsubscribes and bounces. And so when you have that like large list, if you're sending to all of them at the same time, you could have a really large unsubscribe, and that's going to affect your ability to send future emails. So you have to think about that
Mhm.
when you start doing re-engagement campaigns.
Yes, and something that that made me think of too, and I've seen this before where some businesses don't have that unsubscribe option at the bottom of their email. Although it might kind of hurt to put that there, it is important. Like you should include that as an option, or otherwise you could get reported, and that happens so many times. Your domain gets blocked, and it's a whole series of tragic events. But
Yeah.
it could happen.
So if somebody is inactive and you're doing a re-engagement campaign, how many times should you try to re-engage them before you just take them off your list?
Yeah, give it about 2 to 3 attempts. If after, say, the second or third time, they're not even opening or they're not clicking, it's, time to part ways.
You'd rather have a quality smaller list than a large list for several reasons. A, you don't want to annoy people. Like,
Mhm.
B, you're going to hurt yourself when it comes to your email provider, like your MailChimp, your HubSpot, or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're sending out emails and people are not engaging with it, your reliability is not going to be as well with those providers.
Well, and when you think about too, maybe from a KPI standpoint, if you've got so many of these people on your list that are not engaging with you and they just simply should not be there, then it's kind of fogging up some of those metrics that are important and are good takeaways to have, but maybe not as accurate.
Yeah. So, what would you say are your major takeaways when it comes to re engagement campaigns for email marketing?
Be realistic. Not everybody is, it's just going to happen. Not everybody is going to re-engage, and that's just part of it. But if you're building those segments mindfully and you are reaching out to them in a mindful manner, then that'll come to fruition. It'll become clear.
I think that's why you have to always also focus on building a list because you're going
Yeah,
to be constantly losing people by no fault of your own.
yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
All right. Well, that is it for today. You can head over to elevatedmarketing.solutions and sign up for our newsletter, or you can head over to LinkedIn. And my name is Jennifer Denny, and you can follow along there as well. We have a newsletter on there. All right. Take care.